Welcome back to the Tidarium Hangar. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. Today, I usually talk about Masterpiece Transformers on Friday, but I'm going to talk about the Trifecta, the Legends, the mainline Hasbro Chug, and the Masterpiece. I'm going to talk about each one of these, the good and the bad, the pluses and minuses, and how all this stuff sort of works together or separately, how some people are jumping ship from one and going to the other, and how some people collect both or all. Before we get into this week's topic, I got a question for next week's topic. And do you know of any Masterpiece Transformers that are epic fails? So can you put in the comments down below any Masterpiece Transformer figure that you feel is an epic fail? Maybe it's a good company that had a bad figure or a one-off, or maybe it's such a bad figure it ruined the company. And I've got a handful on my list. I'm wondering what's on your list. But let's go ahead and get into talking about the Trifecta of Legends, Mainline, and Masterpiece. Coming up. First, I want to touch on the mainline Hasbro stuff. I gotta say that I actually was enjoying the whole Titan Returns line, but there was a whole slew of mainline Transformers that came before this, and a lot that's come after it. But for whatever reason, this seemed like it was more G1-esque than some of the stuff we got before. Of course, there was the classics back then and all of that. But the problem, even during this era, was the fact that nothing really scaled together. All of these were all over the place in different sizes and scales, and it really didn't fit and make a cohesive collection. Although there are some good points and good pieces with this line that will scale relatively well with what's going on today, if you go much further back than this, nothing really matches up. Now, one of the best things about collecting the mainline is the price and the value. You're going to see some one-offs, though, when it comes to mainline, such as the Top Spin and Twin Twist, and these figures are going for ridiculous prices on the secondary market. But when you look at prices, really, most of the prices are judged by the retail price. What are they at retail right now? And generally, this is considered a deluxe figure. At retail back in the day, these were selling for like $15. Now, that's a $23 price point, something along that for a deluxe. But you get into Voyager at $33 and then Leader Class at $55. Somewhere along the ways, 4 or 5 years ago, I actually forgot the year, but Siege came out. Siege was getting closer to G1, but they were Cybertron versions, and they weren't really Cybertron versions, which was kind of a strange kind of ordeal. But I want to say that Siege is where the scale correctness began. So with a scale correctness, meaning that if you had a Voyager class figure, and you had a Deluxe class figure, and then a Leader class figure, those would all commingle together in a cohesive display or collection, not that you'd have 3 different size Optimus Primes like they were doing in the past. Now, I'm not personally a fan of the Siege designs. I still felt they were just a little bit too stylized, not G1 enough for me, but they were still exciting because they were closer to G1. And I really do feel like the mainline, or the Chug, and if you don't know what Chug is, it stands for Classics, Universe, Generations, something like that. Anyway, along those lines, Henkei was like the Japanese version and stuff. But that is sort of an old term that's not used so much anymore, because now we talk about Siege and Earthrise and Kingdom and all of that stuff that's going on right now. When we got into the Earthrise, we started to see more G1-esque type of Earth modes. So it was Cybertron modes, which still weren't Cybertronian, by the way. We're getting those now in the Legacy, or the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line, for whatever reason, that's where it's landing. But they are looking more G1, and I like that look, and they stayed with the proper scale, and they made some of the figures that were in the past, they didn't call it Core Class, so they call it now. They were calling it Legends back in the day, and it's kind of confusing to have a mainline call it Legends, but that's what they were calling it. But they were making those figures nowadays in the deluxe scale, and they were a more proper size, a more proper scale, but a more expensive price. Between Titan Returns, Siege, Earthrise, and now where they're going from Kingdom into all of this other stuff that they're doing with the Evolution, Victory, like a Legacy Evolution is what they're naming what's going forward. There have been a lot of gems that are sort of deep cuts, and you're getting a lot of deep cuts with the mainline that I never actually thought we'd see at retail, and we saw them at retail. We're also seeing in the mainline reimagining of some of the G1 figures better than ever, and I believe the original one of this had some sort of a walking gimmick to it and all that kind of good stuff in the G1 era, which I have a couple of and none of them work. But looking at this, it's fun and it's exciting, and sometimes you get stuff in the mainline you're not going to see very often in the Masterpiece or in the Legends. The other thing is, of course, price. Now, one thing about price is that it's usually the best price, but then we got into Titans nowadays. The Titan class figures are one of those that's kind of strange. It's collected by both mainline and Masterpiece collectors because the lack of Titan options that are out there for city bots and such. But when it comes to a Mega Supreme, this is one where the mainline is actually higher price point than some of the Masterpiece options that are out there. So it gets a little bit confusing, but it's a great figure. This one here is actually recently announced, and it's going to be a $200 figure with a repaint of Omega Supreme, and I think it does look pretty good overall. And currently, it's a better price than any of the other repainted Blue Guardian options for the Masterpiece scale. But DX9 had one out for $175 that technically was cheaper for the original Mega Supreme. Now I want to transition into Legends, and I wanted to do that with an Omega Supreme. So we've got a couple of things going on in Legends. First of all, I've noticed, and what really got me into Legends, was that a lot of these Legends figures that are out, due to their scale, due to the strange, way off scale for G1, a lot of these are decent replacement items for G1 figures. Just like this is the Panku Toys version of Omega Supreme, and I believe the New Age one's going to be about the same size. I don't know. It's just going to cost 3 times the price. The New Age one's going to cost 3 times as much. Everyone says it's going to be like $330, and the Panku Toys one's like $75 or $85. And so, looking at side by side with the G1, a lot of those are replacements. I know the Dinobots make great replacements for G1s, and a lot of other ones that are out there. There's a lot of figures in the Legends scale that would replace your G1s in a display. Now, I made a video a few years back when I first started collecting Legends about the problems with collecting Legends, and you do not get as much bang for your buck out of these figures as you do with the mainline. And then you could argue you get more bang for your buck out of these than you do with Masterpiece. But it's kind of one of those things where these cost usually twice as much as a mainline Hasbro figure for about half the size or less for the most part. And with that, you have to understand the money's going towards the engineering and towards the fact that they're not producing nearly as many of these Legends figures as they do with the Hasbro mainline, because they have them in the Walmarts and the Targets and all the online retailers instead of just specialty retailers. I personally find myself drawn to the designs of Magic Square, and they are one of the biggest players in the game. But you look at these pictures, they look fantastic, but they don't have as good of a paint and presentation as that of New Age. Now, the two biggest players that make G1-esque are Magic Square and New Age. And so with that, they are currently making figures that are almost the same scale, but New Age used to make them extremely small, and Magic Squares were a little bit bigger. I kind of like them a little bit bigger. I mean, I really don't want to collect 2-inch, 2.5-inch Legends figures. A 4-inch seems to be the standard scale. One thing I have to say about the New Age figures that they do paint and present well. They paint and present on a level of a Masterpiece level, like the Masterpiece price point. So with that, these are much higher priced in some cases than, say, Magic Square or some of the McFans toys and all those out there. And that's another fun thing, is that there's another company out there, McFans Toys, that makes a much cheaper alternative, and you don't see that as much in the Masterpiece scale, but they also make knockoffs. Now you see that in Masterpiece scale, but the paint and presentation of New Age is phenomenal. One of the things about Legends is you get these super ultra deep cuts of characters, or much more variety of characters, that yes, you're seeing a lot of it in the mainline, but you're seeing a little bit deeper when it comes to New Age, coming up with 15 repaints of the same mold. Now that's kind of fun, but it can be exhausting also. Also, when it comes to Legends, there's a lot of competition, and it's a lot of direct competition. It gives you 2 purchasing options at the same time. The weird thing is when both purchasing options disappear, they both get very expensive. So that's kind of strange. It seems like what's the flavor of the month for these creators, then they move on to something else. I got to say that New Age is a little bit better about reissuing their stuff, but they reissue it in different paint schemes, so you don't really get the same thing reissued over and over. Magic Square is a hit and miss, and you never know if and or when they're going to reissue anything. So getting back on track before we get into any of the Masterpiece stuff, when it comes to the Legends, they are the smallest. They are midway price point, or actually getting close to Masterpiece price point. The best value overall is to collect the Hasbro mainline stuff, but they do not quite look as good. They don't have quite as sophisticated engineering, but they are produced in much higher quantities, and for that, they are a much lower price, a better price per value of the plastic, but they are considered the lower end of the three. Then when you get into Masterpiece, you should be getting the best, the biggest, the best paint, the best presentation. That's not always the case, but it usually is. So when it comes to Masterpiece, it generally is a Takara thing. Takara had started and created a Masterpiece line of Transformers. They went super deep, cut on just the G1. In the beginning, it was just G1, and there was no other offshoots, and it was very close to cartoon accurate, but it had a real world feel to it. Then they started switching it up and going to Hypertoon, and now we're kind of stuck in the middle, depending on what the third-party companies want to do. I do feel like Takara is going more tuned, but they leave a few of the real-world elements in as swap-out parts, like we just saw with their Trailbreaker figure. So when it comes to Masterpiece, most people do swear by the fans' toys. I gotta say that when it comes to consistency of quality, paint, and kind of knowing what to expect from their product, fans' toys is very consistent, and their product does look pretty good. But there is, between fans' toys and X-Transbots, they're two great companies that offer great options, and competition is good. I've got to say that if Fans Toys had no competition, I don't know if they'd be as good as they are. I don't think that they would be as high level and work as hard as they do, because complacency could set in after years, if not decades, of no competition. So it's really good to have a competition out there. X-Transbots has a lot of good things coming, but they've had a couple of issues in the past and bumps in the road. They seem to be doing better for the most part, but I really do like a lot of the figures from X-Transbots, and I do look forward to some of the ones that are coming out. And so it seems like we're in a new era of Masterpiece where we are basically getting mostly replacement items, and that does sort of suck in a way, but it also brings about options, because if you're a Legends collector, some of those options have been taken off the table, so you just kind of have to go and find them on the secondary market. Same thing we see with the mainline. The mainline, we're not getting the Top Spin and the Twin Twist reissued anytime soon. There's other competition that's out there coming up also, and it's one of the things that seems like when the Masterpiece era, we have MMC and a few others, Bad Cube, and some of the other companies make toys that seem to have fallen off or slowed down making G1 items and then sort of come back a little bit. But it's exciting to see new companies throw their hat in the ring and give them a shot and getting this, but with the expectation in Masterpiece is you're going to have the higher price point, the larger figure, but it's going to have a better build and better paint, and it should be the best. It should outdo Legends and mainline. That is an expectation of Masterpiece collectors. We get excited for the idea or the prospect of Magic Square or even New Age making Masterpiece figures. New Age has made a Masterpiece figure. I haven't handled it yet, so I can't talk about it. But it's not G1 styled. And with that, we find Magic Square does good for Legends. Their Masterpiece ones have some opportunities. I'll be reviewing this guy very soon. But with that, I would like to see more of the Legends designs upscaled. But you cannot upscale them because they don't have the correct hardware. You have to add in different hardware such as ratchets to hold up the larger figure. And with that, the Masterpiece creators such as X-Transbots, MMC, Fans Toys, Takara, and all of them continually make Masterpiece. But for whatever reason, Magic Square only makes one character. We're actually starting to see some Masterpiece collectors jump ship from Masterpiece for a lot of reasons, such as price, such as space and availability and all that kind of stuff, which when it comes to Masterpiece, you have to have the space to display it to enjoy it. That's the reality of that factor. Masterpiece still costs more than the rest of them. But to me, in my opinion, the Masterpiece scale is better for Transformers because Transformers, in my mind, are large robots, not small, like 3.75-inch action figures. And the mainline, there are some big bots that go along with that, but I still view Transformers as large. But if people can get past that and collect the smaller scales, they've done that, and they save a lot of money and space doing it. And the Beast Wars debate, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but there's Masterpiece Beast Wars, and the discussion argument is if you are on one side of this and say Beast Wars is its own thing and not G1, then they should be as large as they are. If you're on the other end of it and you say Beast Wars is G1, then they need to be technically Legend scale next to your Masterpiece figures. That's all there is to that. Now I'm excited for the future of all three of these. Technically, the mainline, Legends, and the Masterpiece have a lot more work to be done. There's a lot more to look forward to and a lot more figures to get released, even though most of it is cannibalization of what's been made before. With that, I'm still okay with it, and I think we're going to see a lot of collectors picking and choosing, even if they stay with what they're currently collecting and don't jump ship and move to something else. But I'm excited about all three of these. I pick and choose mainline. I also pick and choose Legends, and, well, I guess I pick and choose on the Masterpiece too, because that's kind of where I'm at in my collecting. So I'm curious where you are in yours. Are you in on the Legends? Are you in on the mainline? Are you sticking with the Masterpiece? I'm curious. Let me know down below. And also let me know, are there any Masterpiece fails, epic fails of figures that you felt was a failure? I want to know why, too, you felt it was a failure. We'll talk about that next week. Like and subscribe, and Titanium Hanger out.